So, without further ado, to start off with our speakers, Dr. Farhad Rezaei is a senior research fellow at the Philos Project in New York City, United States. His work primarily focuses on Iran's politics and the examination of violence perpetrated against ethnic and religious minorities in Iran. Dr. Rezaei is a former visiting professor at the Department of Political Science, Glendon College, York University. He possesses over a decade of experience as an academic with a concentration on Iran's politics. He has authored a multitude of books and articles focusing on Iran's foreign and defense policies. His work has been featured in esteemed publications such as the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, Harvard Iran Matters, Middle East Policy, The National Interest, National Review, Center for International Policy Studies, Journal of International Affairs, The Hill, and the Jerusalem Post, among the others. Dr. Rezaei, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for coming here. And once again, I would like to thank the organizers of this important event and giving us the opportunity to talk about this important issue. So once again, my name is Farhad Rezaei. I am a senior research fellow in a think tank by the name of Philos Project in New York. And our main mission is to promote positive engagement in the Near East, positive engagement in the Middle East. Our main focus is on promoting peace between three important religions in the region: Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So that's the mission of our center. And today I am going to speak about one of the researches that we have done in this institution, and that is about the Islamic Republic's persecution of Christian minorities in the Middle East. So that's the main focus of my today's talk, and I will try to stick to the time. That is 15 minutes. So let me set my clock so that I would not go beyond that. Okay? So first I will start with the ISIS persecution of Yazidis. I would briefly talk about this, and I have a reason. Although I said I will talk about the Islamic Republic's persecution of Christians, but this particular issue of ISIS violence against Yazidis is important, and I have a reason for that. I will tell you why I chose this single slide. So, why ISIS violence against Yazidis considered as genocide? There were three important factors that the international community, especially the European Union Parliament, decided to announce that as genocide. The first factor was that it was labeled as genocide due to the deliberate nature of the attacks, of ISIS attacks against Yazidis. The second factor was due to the systematic nature of the attacks against Yazidis. And the third important factor was that ISIS attacks against Yazidis aimed to destroy the Yazidi community. So if it wasn't these three factors, it was not labeled as genocide. So once again, I have a reason for choosing this slide, and at the end I will tell you why I decided to do so. So now here just some digits about what ISIS has done to the Yazidi community in Iraq. And so ISIS killed almost 10,000 of Yazidi people, kidnapped 6,417 people, mostly women and children. 3,451 of them were rescued, and as of today, as we are speaking today, 2,693 women and children are still missing, and 2,745 children became orphaned. At the time of the attack, over 200,000 Yazidis became displaced, and later on, the Iraqi, the Kurdistan regional government disclosed 35 mass graves of Yazidis that were done by ISIS. So as I said, as of today, 2,693 women and children are still missing, and that's the crime that ISIS has done to this special minority in the Middle East. So once again, the topic of my talk today is the Islamic Republic persecution of Christian minorities in the Middle East. So, as you can see here, the Christian population of the Middle East 100 years ago were almost 20% of the Middle Eastern population. But as of today, it's less than 3%. Why that happened? Many people, almost all people, believe that because of violence they were facing of ISIS, the extremist groups that has done that genocide against Yazidis, did the same to Christians. What has been missing here, what has gone unnoticed, is the Islamic Republic's Shia extremist ideology and its persecution of Christian minorities. This is, once again, this is the result of the research that we have done in our center, and it's been recently published. In case that you wanted to find it, it's titled "The Invisible Jihad." So we titled this research as Invisible Jihad for a reason. As I said, up to now, everybody is thinking that it was actually the Sunni extremist ideology of ISIS that has contributed to the plight of Christians in the Middle East. But actually we found a whole different thing. And the result of our research shows something different. That doesn't mean ISIS was innocent here. They also contributed to the plight of Christians, but our research shows that the main culprit in the Middle East that contributed to the plight of Christians, to the hardship of Christians, were actually Shia extremist groups sponsored by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards and by the Islamic Republic and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. So, again, that doesn't mean ISIS was innocent here. As you can see in this slide, ISIS contributed to the forced displacement and property theft and destruction of holy sites on Iraq's ancient Christian community, and the United Nations, according to the United Nations, 200,000 Christians fled their towns in north of Iraq, especially in Nineveh, this is the time that ISIS attacked in June 2014. Over 50,000 Christians were refugees from other places of Iraq, like Mosul, when the ISIS seized their homes. And they have done a lot of atrocities, horrible crimes, like they wrote N on the door of, or the walls of Christian homes, like N, that refers to Nasara, the Christians, so that they could own it, they could seize it, or they could kill the members of the Christian families. So, again, from now on, the focus of my talk is all about the atrocities that the Shia extremist groups have done to the Christian communities of 4 specific countries which we researched. We researched Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. So I will start with Lebanon. So before the civil war in Lebanon, the Christian population of Lebanon, they were 54% of the whole population, but as of today, they are less than 34% of the population, and Hezbollah, which is the Shia extremist group that is basically it's controlling the entire Lebanon, but it's based in south of Lebanon and in the part of Lebanon that sometimes ago they were home to the Christian minorities. So they imposed hardship on the Christian community of Lebanon by restricting the freedom of worship and evangelizing, by imposing Islamic lifestyle on the Christians. And in some parts, they evicted them, they kicked them out of their houses, and they forced them to sell their lands, including their houses and their farming lands and everything. And they discriminated against Christians in public resources allocations. As we know, Hezbollah is a state within a state. It controls the entire Lebanon. The other time, they had 18 ministers in the government, and they had their own companies, and those companies won the projects, including infrastructures, and they received a lot of money. So Hezbollah basically siphoned the huge part of the Lebanese resources to the Shiite community, but the two groups that were mostly neglected were Christians and Sunni population of Lebanon. So their share of pie was dwindled in Lebanon. And recently, Hezbollah also used the Christian population as human shields. How Hezbollah started to shell the Israeli cities in the north of Israel by placing rockets and artillery, rocket launchers and artillery mostly in Christian towns and villages. And once the Israeli forces wanted to retaliate, they retaliated by shelling the Christian community, and because of that, many of the Christian towns had to either move to relocate to different towns or to leave the country. As I said, as of today, the Christian population of Lebanon is only 34% of the whole population, and many of them are still continuing to leave the country. That's their only, basically they do it out of desperation. They have no other solution around. As I said, the resources are just available for the Shiite community, and the Shiite people are they have access to to more resources. Even they receive their salary by US dollars. But Christians and Sunnis, they receive their salaries by Canadian currency, which is plummeting every day. And also the Shiite community used to make purchase in luxury stores, while those opportunities are not available for the Christians. So many of them had to leave the country. That's why their percentage of the population is now reduced to 34%. And as I said, this is just continuing. So one more thing. The land ownership. Before the Civil War, they owned 8,130 square kilometers of land in Lebanon. As of today, it's just only less than 4,000 square kilometers. And that's another factor. And Hezbollah mostly forced them to sell their lands. They were either forced or they had no other choice. They had to sell their lands to leave the country and use that money to leave the country. Another country which we investigated was Iraq. Prior to 2003, the American invasion of Iraq, the Christian population were 1.5 million of the population. As of today, they are less than 141,000 of Christians in Iraq. And again, just similar to the case of Lebanon, these small remaining amount, they're just leaving the country out of desperation. So Yes, prior to 2003, before the war, they were 1.5 million. Today, they are less than 141 million. What happened to them? What happened to them was really interesting. Of course, it's horrible, but for the sake of conversation, it was interesting. Over 1,171 Christians were killed. And look, I know there were a lot of people who were killed in Iraq, and you might think that Christians are not exception to this. But these cases which we found and we investigated, they were killed because of their faith, because they were Christians. That was the reason that they were killed. Otherwise, the number of Christians who were killed during the war are more than that, but we just picked those cases that they were killed because of their faith. There were over 5,000 cases of abduction, 5,175 cases of abduction. And once again, all of these atrocities were done by the Shia extremist groups, including Hashd al-Sha'bi and some other groups that were part of the Hashd al-Sha'bi, which all of them are sponsored by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. Over 161 cases of social and sexual abuses. So all of these cases are horrible. That 161 cases are horrible. But one of those cases which we found and we investigated was just like beyond belief. 17 members of Shia militia in North Iraq, they were members of Shabak. They raped a Christian girl. 17 militia member at once raped one Christian girl. Public incitement. There were 9 cases of public incitement. Religious figures, Shia religious figures in Iraq, called on Shia population against Christian population. They called on, you can seize their property, you should not trade with them, you should not trade in their shop because they are Christians, they sell alcohol. They incited the Shiite population to attack the Christian shops because they sold alcohol and some other. I think my time is over, but I will just 2-3 minutes. The imposition of Islamic lifestyle, they forced Christian girls to wear hijab. They forced Christians to stop selling alcohol and other things that are haram according to the Islamic thought. There were 160 cases of attacks on Christian shops. Specific incidents of cases of eviction. Over 20,000 cases of eviction took place. Over 30,000 cases of seizure of property took place. And there was one case of firing. This was not only, a part of all of those atrocities, they also waged a financial war against Christians by setting their lands and their farms on fire. So 20,000 acres of Christian lands were set on fire. Media said they were done actually by ISIS, but eyewitnesses disclosed to us, we actually hired reporters in Iraq, and they disclosed to us that actually that was done by the Shia militia. Now, let's move to the Syria. Because of the Syrian population, before 2011, before the start of Arab Spring, they were over 2,300,000, but now they are less than 700,000. Again, just like the case of Iraq, there were a lot of cases of killings, abductions, arbitrary detention, torture, inhuman treatment, public incitement against the Christian community, attack on religious places. So since I don't have time, I would like to point on this attack on religious places. Well, over 124 cases of attack on churches and places of worship took place in Syria, and the media, just like always, pointed to ISIS. But one human rights organization actually, which monitored the events in Syria, they actually disclosed that over 75 of those cases were done by either by Syrian forces or by the combination of the IRGC and Hezbollah forces which were ready in those places. Yemen. Well, Yemen is a whole different place and different issue. The Yemeni Christian population prior to the civil war, actually before 2014 that Houthis took control, they were over 40,000 Christians, but now they are less than 1,000, and that's because of the Houthis, which are sponsored, once again, sponsored by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. Once again, we reviewed the same type of things in there. There were cases of killing, abduction, arbitrary detention, inhuman treatment, public incitement, and attack on religious places. So, now, if you still remember the first slide that I talked about Yazidis and the fact that they were labeled as genocide, what factors are needed for an incident, for an atrocity to be labeled as genocide? Well, the first one is intent, then the act, then the pattern of behavior, and the official recognition. For the case of the Islamic Republic, the Revolutionary Guards, the Shiite extremists of persecution of Christian minorities in the Middle East, the three primary acts are here: intention, act, and pattern of behavior. The only thing that is remaining is the official recognition. As I said, for the case of Yazidis, the European Parliament recognized it as a genocide, but for this one, not only they are not recognized as a genocide, but they are gone unnoticed. Just only small, limited number of people knows that it's actually the Shiite extremists who largely contributed to the plight of Christians. Why it happened? That's the most important question, for two reasons. The first reason is that the Shia extremist ideology is extremely anti-Christian. That's first. I would not go over it. I am hoping that when it's a Q&A session, if you have a question, I will go over it and I will talk about it. The second reason was that many of those Christian villages and towns were located in strategic locations in Iraq and Syria. These were the places that Iran wanted to move weapons from Iran to Iraq, and then to Syria, and then to Lebanon. Those Christian villages were located in that road, and they had to get rid of them. So for that reason, even after ISIS was defeated in 2019, Shia extremists, militia groups did not allow the Christian population who were displaced to return to their houses. Once again, I am hoping that you will ask questions, and I will answer your questions in detail when it comes to the reasons for this atrocities that the Shia extremists have done to the Christian populations. I apologize if I go over my time, but thank you very much.